Welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 25th. Time is 7 o'clock, and we are going to go ahead and open our regular meeting for the Hampstead School District. To call the order and a roll call. So Kathy, would you mind calling the roll call?
Thank you. Jason Giard.
Here.
Megan Malcolm.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell. Here. Erin Pellegrini.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
Also present this evening are CFO Business Administrator, Mr. Jeff Dowd, and Pinkerton Academy Student Liaison, Emma Johnston. The presence of other district administrators will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing for discussion of acceptance expenditure of anticipated funds. I'm going to go ahead and read the meeting notice and then turn it over to CFO Jeffrey Dowd. In accordance with RSA 198:20B, Hampstead School Board will hold the public hearing tonight at 7 o'clock to discuss the acceptance and expenditure of anticipated funds from the federal government's elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, CARES ESSER 2 federal grant in the amount of $188,723, as well as $129,456 from Hampstead School District's healthcare agency, Health Trust, for a total amount of $318,179. Turn it over to you, Mr. Dowd.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the funds we're looking at receiving tonight are for ESSER 2 in the amount of $188,723, and Mr. Thompson will be speaking to that in just a moment. The funds for ESSER 2 are to be spent pursuant to the terms of the grant, the federal mandate to us. I'll speak to the second part of it, which is $129,546, which is a return of our surplus, or our portion of the surplus from our health agency, Health Trust, and that can be spent however we deem fit, and I anticipate that that's going to be used to assist with our fund balance that's needed to support the renovation project for the central school. So I will ask Mr. Thompson to speak to ESSER 2, and I'm happy to fill in any questions you may have after he's done.
Good evening. The Hampstead School District has been allocated the sum of $188,723 under ESSER 2. And, there's a lot of acronyms in public education. So ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. These funds, it's a federal grant that is a reimbursement for expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic. This can be for previous expenses dating back to March of 2020, and with ESSER 2 for future expenses dating to December of 2023. Now, the great piece with ESSER 2 is there's a tremendous amount of flexibility that districts are being given in terms of how they expend these funds. And I've had conversations with members of the administrative team, and it is our intention to expend these funds on research-based instructional and intervention strategies. So specifically, Hampstead has a very robust response to intervention program, RTI, yet another acronym. And for those of you familiar with RTI really is a research-based intervention program that looks to provide high-quality instruction to all students. When we encounter students that may struggle or need intervention, they receive targeted intervention. Sometimes that's small group instruction, individualized instruction. But the purpose of an intervention is a quick hit, get students to grade level so that they can access the general education curriculum. Another piece of RTI involves extension. We have a number of students in the Hampstead schools that are above grade level. RTI is a research-based way to provide them with the extension that they need to go above and beyond the curriculum. So in speaking with building administration, we feel as though the best investment of the $188,000 first and foremost would be investing in RTI. What would this look like in each building? Well, at the elementary school, this would look like hiring an additional interventionist, someone who could provide direct instruction in both mathematics and reading to our youngest learners. And again, many of you are aware of the all of the possibilities that come with early intervention. The earlier and the younger we intervene with students, the less likely they are to have an educational disability or require future intervention. So this is a really excellent investment in our ESSER funds. At the middle school, in talking with Principal Denola, this would look like the hiring of additional paraeducators that could push into the classroom to help provide intervention, small group instruction, so that those students don't have to miss Tier 1 instruction. They can receive that support within the classroom environment. We've also want to explore the idea of doing a summer boot camp. Now, a summer boot camp is a newer model in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where we would bring students in prior to the start of school. It could be a week or two before school. They would receive orientation, intervention, opportunities for social and emotional learning, community building. Obviously, to move forward with this, we'd have to gauge interest. We'd need staff that would be willing to come in and work in the summer. We'd also need students and families that would be willing to do this. So part of our summer work would be building this boot camp. And then lastly, an option that is often exercised in July and August is looking at class sizes. We know we're going to have a number of students who will be returning from remote learning. We have a number of students who will be coming back from homeschooling. Also, the summer months, we have new enrollments in the district. So we can utilize, we have the flexibility with ESSER 2 to be able to utilize those funds to reduce class sizes. Now, I caution myself in saying this because the elephant in the room is space. If we were to determine that there was additional sections needed at the Hampstead Central School, a major obstacle to adding additional sections is space. But the bottom line is we have lots of options, but really, if we want to look at the biggest investment for our dollar, we need to look at research-based instruction. Now, the law of opportunity costs would tell us that if we're going to invest our dollars in one way, we're not spending them in another way. And in this case, CFO Dowd and I have had conversations, and at this time with ESSER 2, we do not intend to spend those funds on infrastructure. And there's really two prevailing reasons. One is a federal act some of you may be aware of. It's called Davis-Bacon, and it places significant guidelines and restrictions on school infrastructure or federal infrastructure programs over $2,000. The number of guidelines and regulations that we'd have to go through to spend these funds, it's pretty significant and would be pretty taxing on a brand new SAU. Additionally, as many of you are aware, with most federal funds, including ESSER 2, you're able to supplement but not supplant. And so what that means is if we have budgeted for items, for example, a renovation, we can't use federal dollars in lieu of actually spending budgeted dollars. So the renovation that was approved by the voters in March, those funds will be used to support that project. Now, with that said, ESSER 3, the allocations for ESSER 3 were released by the Department of Education yesterday and will be distributed in two phases. But the sum total for ESSER 3, and I know this hearing is for ESSER 2, but just to give you context, the sum total for ESSER 3 is $424,011.42. So there would be an opportunity to explore different avenues for the expenditure of ESSER 3. And with that said, I will entertain any questions or turn it back over to CFO Dowd, sorry.
All good. So that's that. So initially, we had been looking at seeing if we could supplant or use some of the funding for our renovation project. I have not received solid guidance from the Department of Education on that, and I think that there are some significant risks involved in that. And at this time, I think that the use for RTI and a couple other uses as well, some which will probably fall under ESSER 3. We've been able to also take on 2 additional custodians to make sure that our buildings stay clean during this pandemic, and I suspect that they will be putting those through probably through ESSER 3 as well. So that's a great use of our ongoing resources. We've been able to put, I believe, 2 through the first half of one of the grants earlier in the year. So now we'll be able to pick up the rest of this year as well as next year in order to keep our schools as sanitary and COVID friendly as we can. our students and staff. So, any questions on these?
Anybody have any questions yet? Caitlin?
For SR 3, are the guidelines the same as SR 2 in terms of what it can be used for?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Thompson on that, only because there are some nuances which we're still exploring, but if
Right.
you wanted to cover some of the nuances, particularly with respect to learning loss and those sorts of things.
And I know it just came out, so if I'm jumping the gun, it's okay.
No, so it did just come out, and I would say that in some ways they mirror the guidelines that we have for SR2. There is an emphasis, I believe, a minimum of 20% of the funds need to be utilized for what the DOE calls learning loss. But other than that, again, we're still unpacking the latest set of guidelines for SR3, but they do mirror in some ways SR2.
The DOE is getting guidance from their federal partners on a lot of questions that we as school districts have that are coming up. So as that guidance continues to evolve, we continue to follow it.
And there are some additional requirements, and Mike and I were just having this conversation earlier. In order to access SR3, there's some data that the district needs to provide the DOE in terms of metrics from this school year and next school year. And so Mr. Flynn and I are collaborating on that project. And also a safe return to school plan, an updated return to school plan needs to be submitted by June 23rd. And I met with area superintendents today, and the thinking is that we will collaborate to create a sort of regional plan, one that can be individualized for each individual district, but meets the criteria set forth by the Department of Education. Part of that safe return to school plan is collecting feedback from the public and having that plan vetted through the school board. So that's something that that I would come at a later date to the board, for their feedback and approval.
Anybody else right now? All right, a couple questions on that. So if the board needs to review that and provide
So your
feedback.
next step is if there are no more board questions, then you'd open up your public hearing to public comment or question.
I do have some questions.
Okay.
Sorry. June 23rd, you're saying it needs to be submitted. So would you be bringing this to the board on the 8th at our next meeting, or do you think we're going to need to have a special meeting to review that and discuss?
My understanding, and again, the guidance for the plan literally came out this week, is that you would receive pre-approval from the DOE.
Okay.
So there's not an urgency for the early June meeting.
Okay. As far as the recommendation of some instructors for both central school and middle school, would that be something you would want to start now, or is that something you're going to look to do after some of the testing that's still going on to understand where those areas?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, David. Really what we want to look at, I know that the district is in the middle of conducting their SAS testing and their iReady testing, as well as looking at some of the informal and formal local assessment. We want to analyze that data first to make a decision. With these funds, again, comes great flexibility, and we have until December of 2023. So, I could come back to this board and say additional information and data has presented itself. This is an adjustment to how we wanted to spend that money. But at the end of the day, we really will be spending it on instruction and what the DOE, refers to as learning loss.
Okay, thank you. Next one is about the boot camp. That's an awesome idea. I really glad you said that. When do you think communication is going to be coming out from the school system to say we'll do a boot camp? Is that going to be also after testing? Is that going to? What's the timeline there you're thinking?
Yeah, I would say, we want to be able to gain feedback, through surveys to see if that is, something that is of interest to folks. So I would say it would probably be towards the end of the school year, if not the beginning of the summer.
Okay. All right. And I think that was it. You asked my question about the infrastructure. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any more board comments, questions? All right. We'll open it up for the public. All right. Looks like there are no comments or questions from the public. Kathy, do we need a motion to close this?
No, you can just close the public hearing.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And thank you all. Thank you for the information, from Bob and from Jeff. Thank you very much. So now we're going to open the regular meeting, and we'll look to approve of the minutes. Board members, you do have a set of public meeting minutes, as well as 2 sets of non-public meeting minutes. We want to take a few minutes to read, review. I do think we're going to need separate motions based on attendees for one of the non-publics. So we have regular meeting minutes from May 4th. We have non-public meeting minutes from February 17th, and then non-public session on May 12th.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the May 4th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All approve? Raise your hand.
You?
Thank you.
I will make the motion to accept the non-public meeting minutes from February 17th,
All right.
2021.
Looking for a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All approved? Any abstain?
Abstain.
All right. Thank you very much. And one last.
I'll make the motion to accept the non-public meeting minutes for the May 12th meeting.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Giard. Any discussion? All right, all approve? Shan? All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, will you be taking any action to unseal any of those minutes, or will they remain sealed?
I think we should, so there was the February 17th non-public, we had sealed those with the, so Kathy, if you could help me with this one. We had sealed those pending agreement for what was in the non-public, so do we have to make a motion since those have already, the events have happened?
So it looks as though the meeting minutes don't provide a time in which they would be
Okay.
unsealed.
Okay.
Sometimes you give a date, they'll be sealed until a certain date, and at that point, they automatically become unsealed. It doesn't appear as though that's the case here. So if the board's desire to unseal these minutes, then you'll have to take a formal action to do so.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll be looking for a motion to unseal the meeting minutes from February 17th.
So moved.
All right, need a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, so look to take a vote on unsealing the meeting minutes 17th, and who's all approved? And abstain?
Abstain.
All right, thank you for that, Kathy. All right. Let's see.
And
We're gonna.
I didn't know, did you want to unseal your May 12th, or are you going to keep those ones sealed as well?
Let me just look at.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe that those have to remain sealed because we're still under why we sealed them.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead and for public comments. I don't know if anybody had signed up.
No one has signed up.
Okay.
Chair.
So we're good there. Next, we have what we believe is the final school highlights at Pinkerton from Emma Johnston. So, Emma?
All All right. So since my last school board report, a lot has happened at Pinkerton as things are coming to an end and returning to normal too. So NHS held an induction ceremony in person this past Sunday where new members were inducted and current members were given cords and plaques. The new officers were inducted as well, with Hampstead's Isabel Povey as the president. Student Council attended the NHASC Executive Board Spring Conference, where 3 Pinkerton students were elected to serve on the board, including Hampstead's Ryan McMahon as the Central District President. At this conference, I ended my term as the president and gave a farewell. Spring sports are in full swing and doing very well. Boys baseball is 14-2, girls lacrosse is 13-2, softball is 13-3, boys lacrosse is 10-4, and volleyball is 7-4. Unified Track had their state meet today after a short season of 3 meets, but we were grateful to be able to compete at all. That's what I just came from, actually. There are many senior events coming up as well. First, the Academy Awards was held on May 15th on the baseball field, and it was a great night with student performers and a comedian who was Mrs. K's son from the Central School, which is cool. Tomorrow is the movie night at Fisher Cat Stadium. June 6th is the Senior Awards Night, where scholarships and other awards are given. And finally, graduation is June 7th to end it all. So I also wanted to take a chance to say thank you all for this opportunity. When I was asked to be the Hampstead School Board Liaison as a sophomore, I didn't really expect to do it for the next 3 years, nor be so invested in the town happenings as well. Over the past 3 years, I have watched many board members come and go and many decisions made as well. I want to thank all the board members that I have worked with over the past 3 years for the opportunity to be able to speak at these meetings every 2 weeks. I will, of course, be graduating and attending the University of Colorado Boulder in the fall, so this is my last meeting, but I will never forget this experience, so thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the board and school districts,
Thank you. Oh,
from us, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, It's always been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Good?
Well, Emma, thank you for keeping us connected to Pinkerton. Sometimes it's hard for us doing the day-to-day and getting a lot of information about Central School and Middle School, but we have this whole other group of kids who are just as involved in Hampstead. So thank you for really keeping us connected to them because it's important. So thank you.
I'd say from me, I even learned, even though I have a senior, I learned more about Pinkerton sometimes from you than my own daughter. So
You didn't know about the movie night? Is that what
I
you're
did
saying?
not know about the movie night. So, no, but thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, congratulations, Emma, and good luck in everything you do.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
you're going to love it out there.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, all right. At this time, we're going to move on to discussion around the unanticipated funds and a little bit more detail about possible any other ways we may be spending, or discussion from Mr. Dowd. So, Mr. Dowd, did you have anything more about as far as actions on this at this point?
No, I didn't. I think we're good right now, unless the board has any further questions. I think that we've been able to go through, and Mr. Thompson has been able to really walk us through a lot of
Okay.
what the intentions are, so we're good.
How about the money from Health Trust? Is that, do we need a motion on that to where that goes exactly, or are you had said before you're thinking that's going to go towards infrastructure, but is that anything you need in from us?
Well, now, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had the public hearing, but was there a motion to accept
Right,
those
there was
funds?
no, yeah, so what you probably need to do is you need to have a motion. I'm assuming that you'll have a motion on both of the ESSR and this one, for the purpose of accepting that money. Because you
Okay.
have to take a formal action to accept it.
Okay,
And then as you go to spend the money later, you can continue to present how you will spend the money later, but you do need to accept it.
okay. Just want to make sure before we did that motion if there was anything additional. So, all right, so we'll be looking for a motion to accept the money from SR 2 as well as the money from Health Trust.
Correct, yeah.
And I don't have the exact total. I think it was,
We had 188,723 listed in the public hearing. The amount is a little bit higher than that as a final number, but I think that's okay. It's not really material. So 188,723 for ESSER and 129,456 for the Health Trust surplus.
okay,
We'll also be having a separate hearing on the ESER 3, now that that's final, so
Yep.
those two are good for now.
All right, so I think take those as separate, or do you think?
One motion's fine.
One motion, so looking for a motion to accept funds from SR2 and from Health Trust for $188,723 and respectively $129,456.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor? All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. All right, so next one on the agenda is for the 8th grade graduation. I believe Mr. Flynn, you'll be speaking to this.
So I think you missed one.
Oh, you did?
I wonder if we go back to that one first. Awards and recognition.
Oh, I apologize, I did go right over it, apologize.
Is that all right? Can I
Yeah,
just-
yeah,
Okay,
perfect,
great.
thank you for correcting me.
So after this challenging year for all of us, there's something that I can't be more excited to bring to the board. And I know we've had minor press releases, but it's when you try and describe certain people in our profession. I said I wasn't going to talk hockey tonight, but being a hockey mom, I think she'll let me. You have great players all the time, and then you have players that are far above other ones, and this is what this person brings to our building every day. And more specifically in the hub of this building, in the library center. What I've seen out of her in 2 years is nothing but greatness. How hard she works, the time she puts in with her staff, the support she gives teachers, and how she works with students, and then never blinks when we need more help in another area. I think this award is well deserved as the 2021 Outstanding Library Program. Mrs. Connors is just the best in the state, and this only proves that for a fact. So she will also be acknowledged at the awards excellence in New Hampshire on June 5th. And just so I can say it one more time, it is the Outstanding School Library Program, and without a doubt, she dominates it. So with congratulations, Ms. Connors.
I had a couple words prepared.
Absolutely.
Good.
I'll try to keep this.
I expect nothing less.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. And for those who don't know me, I'm Diane Connors. I'm the Library Media Specialist at Hampstead Middle School. I've been with the district for 5 years, and I'm very privileged, so very privileged to work with our students and to work with such talented, hardworking colleagues. The Outstanding Library Program Award from the New Hampshire School Library Media Association is awarded annually to a library program that plays a strong role in teaching and learning, promotes a positive learning environment, and is led by well-qualified staff with strong administrative support. I'm here tonight to accept this award on behalf of Alex Hong and myself. Alex is the Assistant Library Media Generalist. I'm proud of the programming that she's provided this year, book clubs, the Great Stoneface Book Award reading program, and the curation of many helpful teaching resources, just to name a few. Alex and I strive to make every child feel great, whether they like to read or not. We want all the staff and students to take advantage of our expertise and the library's wonderful print and digital resources. We want to thank the administration, the staff, for their continued support, but we also want to thank the Central School Library and the Hampstead Public Library. They use our library, they promote our programming, our resources, and in addition to all the English language arts teachers, we wanted to just thank some of the following staff for their recent collaborations: Anne Maria Zarian, Pam Caridio, Laura Hansen, Heather Mayu, David Remillard, and Sangeeta Sood. So please visit us at the library. We conduct serious business. If you want to know more about high-quality graphic novels or how to strengthen media literacy skills, or do you want to know more about Global Read Aloud and what the students think about it, get in touch. In closing, the HMS Library is grateful, proud, and working hard to serve our staff and students. Thank you.
Thank you.
notice how she took 0 credit for what she's done. So that tells you how great she is. In regards to skipping back to C, the 8th grade graduation, this is just a brief update for the board. We have been working on it and finalizing details that Mr. Nola will be sending out as early as tomorrow, but by the end of the week. The one thing to share as we're at a public meeting is the date is confirmed for June 14th with a rain date of June 15th and then a rain date of June 16th because we are holding it outside for the first time ever. So it will be outside. We have watched several universities produce graduations recently in other areas surrounding schools. So we have a safe plan in place. Hoping it's maybe the last safe learning thing that we have to plan, and that we'll get through it and everyone will be all right. So Mr. Nola will be releasing those details as early as tomorrow so that families are prepared and we'll be ready to go. Questions?
I have a quick question. You may not have the answer to it yet because I know you're still working out details. Do you know if you're going to be able to live stream that? Or
We're
not?
running it so things you don't know until you have to do it. We are running into some challenges. I don't know if you noticed the communication trucks on the road on the way up to the meeting tonight. We're trying to figure out if it's possible to get a signal out there. We've been working with cable, but we're having issues again with that because all of those control boards need to go out there.
Right.
So worst case scenario for this year, it will be recorded and put out on our YouTube channel and put out. So we'll take care of the people that are unable to attend because of that. But we're already planning for next year, even though Mr. Nola said she never wants to do it outside again. I advised her not to make comments until you know. We are improving. We're going to try and get a signal out there, a line out there, so that we can have other things out there as well. It's the same thing that we've talked about here. Things that we're noticing that we've never had to do before, we're adding it to our list of improvements.
Okay, that sounds great. Recording's great too, so people can see it.
Yep.
Any other questions on 8th grade graduation? Thank you for the effort. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, so there's some hurdles you all are facing, so appreciate you, going to do whatever you can.
Middle school team's doing an outstanding job. All right.
Next on the agenda is SAU separation update. As everybody knows, as of July 1st, we are SAU 55 in Hampstead only. Thought we'd take this time just to give the public a little bit of an update on a few items. So, Mr. Dowd?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we continue to move on. We continue to separate systems and within the SAU, make sure that everything can operate fine independently. We've been in a great position for that because we've done so much over the years.
Jeff, do you mind speaking up just a little bit?
To make sure that things were separated, which is helpful. So in front of you, you have a financial breakdown of where I think we're going to end up compared to where we would be for the SAU. And bear in mind, it's very difficult if we were to look at just an expense and cost savings perspective, looking at what our expenses are going to be that we know are coming up versus what our expenses would be if we were to be proceeding with the SAU in its current form, just like we have in every other year. So for expenses, we have been able to line up all of our staff and secure facilities, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. My estimate for total additional expenses is $670,524. For expense savings, I've looked at and projected forward what the cost of the SAU would be for next year if we were to continue on in it, and that's $574,039. This board took the technology director out of the budget in light of what the organizational structure was going to look like for next year, giving you a savings of $100,627 with associated benefits of $44,307. So we're looking at total additional expense of $670,000 with some expense savings of $718,000 for a favorable budgetary impact of $48,449, which is pretty good. I've been able to put this together because we're at a point that we have our expenses lined up both in terms of salaries and in terms of our facilities. So I'm very pleased to announce that we are under agreement for space at 20 Mary E. Clark Drive, which is the road right where the library is. When you go in, the library is on your right-hand side. There are 3 buildings on your left-hand side. This is the last building down. It's on the second floor, Unit 10. So we should have that lease finalized and wrapped up in the next few days. And it's going to provide a great administrative space for, I think, the district and for our needs there. Some of the things that we would be handling there are, for example, employee onboarding. A lot of that process is digital at this point, but we would still need somewhere for people to come in to be fingerprinted, for any HR assistance that they need, for meetings that the superintendent would be holding, parents or administrators. Obviously, our audit team would be going there as well to audit our books. Any other issues that you would normally handle, like work permits, for example, that currently go to the SAU office, would go to this office in Hampstead. So very, very pleased about that. The space will be great. I've been out there. Superintendent's been on a virtual tour, so and everything seems good. So that's that. Any questions?
Move-in date, do you have official yet?
So we're
Approximate?
having some build-outs done, and so as soon as those build-outs are done, we would get the space, but not later than June 28th.
Okay.
We have time before that, though, to be able to move in our things, particularly files, and secure them. So we may not be able to move in, take possession of it until the 28th. We would be able to actually move in as early as we need to have all of our files and that sort of thing moved in well ahead of time.
Okay. Just wanna make
And if
sure.
the work is done, then we'll move in when the work is done.
Okay. All right. And going to the dollars here, just a question on the total number at the end. Is that based on current budgeted funds for the positions we've yet to hire? Or is that so?
I am just looking at the positions that we've hired. We really only, when we look at the SAU, the people who are in the SAU office, the only way that we can really compare our cost structure is to look at what we have now as part of the SAU structure versus what we will have as part of the SAU structure. Okay. So, for example, in that SAU office, I would envision there being a director of curriculum and technology, perhaps, but it will definitely be at that building, but that right now is a part of this district's expense.
Okay.
So even though there's no real SAU, we're all one district.
Right.
So in order to really get a fair comparison as to what the costs are now versus what they will be, I only include those positions that we would normally have as part of the SAU under its current structure.
Okay. I was curious just because where you put the tech director in the expenses, that's not necessarily in the SAU office, but that's right now in the district.
It's in the district, yeah. And that's one that, under the current SAU structure, we wouldn't be adding any positions. In fact, you're able to remove that position.
Right.
So,
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Dowd? Okay. All right. Thank you, Jeff. And we'll go right to you for the 2021-2022 tuition rates.
you have a memorandum in front of you with the proposed tuition rates for kindergarten, elementary, and middle school for the year upcoming for the 21-22 school year. These tuition rates are for people who are outside of our district who wish to tuition their students into our district. We do not have many people who do this, but for the ones that we do who would like to send their students here, or in the event that we have a student who may be placed here that we may need to have a rate for, the rates are provided. They're based on our prior year, the year we most recently closed, cost per student, which excludes transportation. Obviously, transportation would not be provided to a student who's not in the district. And I advance that forward by our budget increase percentage for last year, well, for the current year and for the upcoming year. So for kindergarten, looking at $10,400, elementary, $20,800, middle school, $20,635, and for special education, $41,435. Very similar to last year's modest increases, or the current year with modest increases.
Yeah. All right. So for this, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the 2021-2022 tuition rates for kindergarten, elementary, middle school, and special education.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
All right, in discussion? All right, all in favor? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dowd. All right. Next one we have is for the committee liaison assignments. Again, this is for discussion. I know in talking to Kathy, there's a couple updates I needed. This is an older one. I do not have the current on me, but I think everybody remembers what they signed up for. I think what we were looking here for a discussion was more a report out from Mr. Giard on discussion with the town as far as a liaison to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, last week I had the opportunity to speak with both one of the selectmen and someone from the communication committee. I spoke to Mr. Gillette and Mrs. Warnock. Great discussion, great collaboration on how the town can move forward and support one another, support the different boards, and even kind of game plan for events or anything coming up in the future based on the board, based on the school board, or even based on the communication committee, and getting information out to the town. We met for about an hour, we brainstormed quite a bit, and what we decided upon was that we're going to continue to do this once a month. We're going to meet up once a month. There are some goals that the communication committee has that I'm going to help them support. They're going to try to get a community newsletter out to the town with all events going on in town, not just school, not just the selectmen, but anything going on in town. And there's going to be a section just for the school and the school board in there so that we can update them on any of the events, we can update them on our calendars, and help get that information out to more of the community. So I'm just pleased to announce that we're going to continue that going forward. I'm going to meet with them monthly and each month be able to provide back some feedback to the board here on what we're doing.
All right. Any questions from Mr. Giard from anybody? You know, I have got a couple. So, as far as before we had supported the long-term planning. So, is that something that you'd be doing now?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think that it would make sense, most likely, in the coming month or two, to talk with Mr. Thompson about how to get that coordination of communications from the school to the communication committee. That makes sense.
Yep.
That's all I had on that one. So.
Do we need to make a motion to add that liaison, or?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry.
Kathy, do we need to take a vote? We're adding a liaison assignment. Something that we haven't done since I've been here, since Caitlin's been here, so we didn't know typically if this is just a nod and say, let's add it, or?
I would recommend that you do, because the statutes do provide the board with the authority to chair and run certain committees, like facilities, et cetera. There's a list of them.
Okay.
So by virtue of the action that you are taking that on as a board-established committee, which is important, because a board, well, it's not a board-established committee, but just a liaison to serve in that. So I would recommend going ahead and doing that.
Okay. Then I'll be looking for a motion for creating the Board of Selectmen liaison.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I think, one thing that we have not had here, which I think is something we should do, is outline some of the responsibilities or expectations of these roles. We're it's like, hey, I got facilities, so I'll talk to Jeff over here. But what do we expect out of our role doing this? So that Jeff knows I'm going to come knocking for this reason, or, so I think that's something we should do. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is this is a new role, so as you start to build it out, it'd be good to have that documented.
Will do.
So we can work on that all this year as a goal for ourselves. My suggestion.
Yep. I agree.
Okay.
That's going to help future boards know what to expect from each position.
Yep. You need a vote, right? Yeah. So all approved, raise your hand. All right, thank you. Get lost in our discussion sometimes. All right, thank you for that, Jason. Thank you, everybody. Okay, next we have the Safe Learning Plan and Assessment Update from Mr. Flynn.
Thank you. Credit to Mr. Thompson. He's kind of stole all my thunder on what I was going to talk about tonight. So in regards to what you guys have been asking about, right? So more specifically is we're completing our testing, our internal assessments as well, and we're targeting essentially some of the things that Mr. Thompson talked about in regards to boot camps. We're also looking at alternatives in regards to enrichment, and I'm going to say it again, the challenge for us this summer is going to be staffing. It's really difficult. a lot of people are at the end of the year. So I liked what Mr. Thompson had mentioned, saying that as we get closer to the end of the year, early summer is when you'll start hearing from us for families. And we're actually trying to be creative with the timing of it, thinking that August might be more successful in both getting staff members as well as participation from community members. Kind of get through July where everyone's done, vacations are out of the way, and then you get into, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, first, second week prior to school coming back, trying to get students at that point. So we're really going to be targeting, and he mentioned a survey as well. We'll survey families on interest level and what they would like to look for, whether it be 3 days, 5 days. You have to find that lane in which people are looking to participate. So that's the initial work here towards the end of the year. A lot of end of year activities that are being planned and communicated. We've partnered with partnered with the families that, in regards to the carnival. I know some people are aware of that for our students, so that will be going on as well. And I would just like to point out, since it's been kind of the death of me and the nurses throughout the year in regards to our dashboard, and Mr. Shaw, who updates it when I send it to him regularly, we're finally in the yellow. I know a lot of people aren't paying attention anymore, which is great, but we're in the yellow, and it's finally nice to see we're actually down to only one student in quarantine. We have not seen that since we came back. So it's just another sign of that we've made it kind of over that next step, and really looking forward to closing out the year in both buildings and going out on a positive note. Questions?
Just for me, just about the testing. I think testing is wrapping up in the next week.
The middle school, yeah. So middle school is finished. Middle school is finished. 8th grade still has to do science. So 5th grade and 8th grade do science. And then actually our cohort C, our students who are out are coming in that are going to be taking the New Hampshire State Assessment. Some opted out, but some are coming in this week. So it should be wrapping up. And then Dr. Cheney, you start next week.
We start the end of this week. We wrap up
Yep.
next week.
Yep. So we should be all done by next week, which was our target, was the first week of June. So
Okay.
worked out pretty well.
And then an overview to the school board, the meeting on the 8th. Would that be appropriate? Is that aggressive or?
First week in June, it's going to be tight, but we'll have something. How about that?
Okay.
We'll have something.
All right.
We'll have more, rather than talking big terms. The plans that they're working on, we'll discuss a little more in detail.
Okay.
I'm going to say it again. I don't think you can target students until we have all of it, not just some of it. And that's what's rolling in now, is some of it. And we'll have more of it, more towards that second, third week of June when we're wrapping up.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a lot of those transitional meetings, overlapping grades 2 and 3, so forth and so on. And that is a part of our data collection as well. So we'll have something for you. We can put that on the agenda for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's just to build confidence in, some people think that there's more loss of learning than there really is. So being able to communicate that, but also get people prepared what we're thinking of in August, September, just whatever we can do. So that'd be great. So
Yeah, and Mr. Thompson and I are meeting now pretty regularly, so we're already having those discussions. And like I said, he stole a lot of the thunder. So
we know where you're at. We know you're helping quite a bit. So thank you, Mr. Flynn.
yeah. One last thing, I just we're at the end of May here, and if you can imagine where we started and where we are, I think it's just I can't thank the staff and the teachers, but not just that. We're talking custodial, who set up and break down 100 tables a day for lunch, cleaning up, walking around everyone, continuing to keep this place safe. Teachers continuing to follow the rules, even though it can be challenging as we're going towards the end, and people want to start making moves, and we keep saying let's get through the year and then we'll figure it out. So just a testament to the staff from top to bottom and everything that they're doing to continue to allow this to operate every day. For as exhausted as they all are, they're still here with smiles on their faces and treating our students amazingly. So compliments to them, and more importantly, the administrative team that are continuing to fuel the engine. So I just wanted to throw that in there as we're getting towards the end here. You know, we can see the finish line, which is a great thing.
Yep. Any questions for Mr. Flynn?
I actually don't for once. I know.
I'm going to sit down.
Your email.
Oh, about okay. Oh, well, actually I do.
You had a prompt.
I'm like, I had to jog my memory. This actually probably is something that we should have talked about maybe a long time ago, but given everything that's gone on, I was wondering if we should have some sort of a committee set up for the end of the year, for the future, so that if something like this were to happen, whether it's COVID or some sort of disaster or some sort of something, that we have a team together that maybe has, the superintendent, maybe some nurses or pediatricians, fire department, police, like, emergency type workers that we can go to say, hey, what are your recommendations based on, health
Sure.
and safety and things like that.
So we have an emergency operation plan in place that's required by the state of New Hampshire.
Okay.
It's on file for every type of disaster that you can possibly think of. And I might laugh here, and someone can help me. I'm not sure a pandemic was in the EOP. Can anyone?
There is a pandemic annex in the appendix. It is a sentence that
Yeah.
says we'll follow the guidelines or the lead of the school nurse.
Yeah, and I'm
It doesn't significantly outline
right.
the process.
But
They're
in-
thinking they're thinking the flu or something.
But in that EOP is animal control if something gets released on your camp. Like it is an extensive plan.
Okay.
In regards to, I think this year, in regards to that, it has, I'll say, altered some of our discussions, and that's why I made a joke earlier about Mr. Nola, don't say no till you know now. As we've done these new things in this profession, in this world we live in, we've been taking notes saying, that worked great, we can do that again, or this is even better than what we were doing. So this is going to be where I say that can be up to Mr. Thompson next year, okay? And he can certainly form that.
I think just
Mr. Chair.
It is on file, the EOP. I want to reiterate that. Go ahead, Caitlin, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And this might be a question, too, to put to Mrs. Denola. We have a safety committee, which does include, fire, police, et cetera, and it does include our school nurses, or at least middle school. Both. Okay, both. So this raises a good point about maybe that's a committee that's already in place that could. I'm looking to Mrs. Denola because she kind of puts that all together. If you want to say anything, Mrs. Denola. Rather than a new committee.
No,
anyways.
that sounds great. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I have to move it way down. Hello, everyone. And yes, we do have a district safety committee that has been together for a few years now. I think 4 years, Caitlin. And it does include Captain Dane, our police chief, our school nurses, facilities, Paul Ott. It's all the players that would make decisions with regards to the facilities or part of the state plan if we needed to do off-site sheltering, if we have some pod pieces. So there are layers of that, and our EOP does have those pieces part of it, and that's all due to the state by June 30th. Every year we have to update it, and they've already contacted us about some of the changes that will go into the language and our learning of how to handle these situations and crisis situations. We do, helicopter pads. They teach us all that stuff, and so that's also part of our training at the beginning of the school for our staff as well. But that is definitely a layer that we have learned, and we can now write it down.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
I'll fix it.
Just a follow-up to that
Yeah.
is, we might not be ready for this meeting, but maybe we talk about this at June 8th meeting, is what does reopening look like? Start to talk about that a little bit. it's going to be, I can just imagine, it's going to be different than it is today.
Sure.
Right? But start to, understand what's being planned so the community can start to feel and understand what we're going through and what we're, talking about for reopening.
Yeah, and Mr. Thompson and I are working on a document that's required by the state before the end of June anyways.
Yep.
So it'll be in the discussions. I just want to caution everyone that we still don't know, and I know that's hard in our profession. Everyone's looking for what are the rules going to be come September. We have to be calculated in those decisions so that if we say something now and then something else occurs, I just want to we lived through a lot this year together.
Yep.
And people wanting answers. So the discussion will begin, and they will solidify that for sure.
Yep.
For discussion.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Flynn? All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. Next one is for the board. We have our dates that we'll be meeting between August 10th, which is tentative, through next year. And really for the discussion here is about location change. As you can see, just about everything is located in town offices, but as we've talked about, we are looking to change our meeting location to the middle school. So I'd like to discuss that, confirm that, have any dialogue with anything that might be needed.
I'm good with having it here.
Okay. All right.
It's a nice space, so.
Yep. I think it's more appropriate. The only part about it is, and this comes back to the funds that we want to allocate. I don't know if this is part of what we would entertain, the health trust funds, but Mr. Flynn did provide a brief overview last time of the anticipated expenses of, modernizing this space. Is that something that you're looking at with the health trust funds, or is that something that
I think
later?
we'll have, Jeff and I are working on, believe it or not, ESSER 1, going back to what we had to spend by December 31st, and a lot of that was my money. So that's reimbursing my account lines. So I'm working with him on finalizing some of those numbers to make those purchases for summer work for the start of next year.
Okay.
Yep.
So just
So I don't need that money. Okay.
You don't need the money, and we would anticipate over the summer that work would
Summer
be done?
work, yep.
Okay.
Great.
Then, Kathy, are you looking for a motion here to change the location for the entire 2021-2022 school board meeting locations?
So you could make a determination about that, because typically when you do set your schedule, you can change your location and meeting dates as needed, but you should have a home designation
Yep.
for your meetings.
Yep. I think we're all in alignment that changing location to the middle school is appropriate.
I don't think you need an action. I think
Okay.
you can just announce it.
All right. So it is announced. We are meeting at the middle school going forward. We're watching you, Ms. Nodola. Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Okay. Any other question from anybody on the meetings that are set forth between now? For the new members, do have the budget meetings that start in October. They are every week for 4 weeks. There's a major call out there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, next one, good discussion coming up, policies. So, first, Mr. Flynn and everybody on the policy committee, thank you about what you're going to talk to, so.
I think I should have just sat at the table tonight. So if you can remember back, believe it or not, we had this initial conversation, I believe, around September. It's about closing the books of the combined SAU and essentially opening the books of Hampstead SAU. And part of the work of the policy committee was condensing that repetitive policies to single policies, ones that were duplicates, repealing them, so that come July 1, Hampstead will be its own policy book. We had our own policy book, but now it'll include the SAU elimination of the SAU stuff. So really a compliment to Melissa Post with the organization and the structure and making sure that I was dotting my I's and crossing my T's. The board, I actually wasn't at the last meeting. Caitlin and Jay were there. I believe you finalized them all to where they are here for you this evening for the read. And I just want to reiterate, it was a review process of, the easiest way I say it is SAU 55 has their policies, Hampstead has theirs, but there were duplicates or repetitive ones, so we merged those over, eliminated, repealed, or made the motion to carry them on. So that's what's in front of you this evening. And then after this, we're signed, sealed, and delivered, and you will officially have your own book come July 1, and then the combined SAU will be no more in regards to policy.
All right. I don't know, Ms. Parnell, did you want to?
Did I mess anything up, Caitlin?
No?
Okay.
Okay.
So board members, obviously this is a bigger packet of policies than we usually have, but it's pretty easy to divide up. When you look in front of you, I'm not going to read every initial, but 1 through 19, those are SAU policies that the policy committee is suggesting that we waive second read and repeal effective July 1, 2021. So these are policies that have something basically identical in the Hampstead policy, so we don't need to keep these. Then if you look under the policy notes, so this is for policy CB and CBB. These are Hampstead policies that the policy committee is doing a slight revision on to the language so that it removes anything that's suggestive of a multi-district SAU. So it just is clarifying the language so that we're only dealing with one district in the SAU. So that's CB and CBB, and the policy committee is recommending to waive second read on those and adopt them. The final policy that we looked at does need discussion. And we discussed it a fair amount within the policy committee. This is CBI, and it involves evaluation of the superintendent. So the policy committee is recommending that this gets moved to second read, but we wanted to make sure that the board had some time to discuss this, because it may be something that needs to be a work item moving forward. It may be something that after second read, we approve it, but then look at how we want it to work. And that would involve the board and Mr. Thompson as well with how we want that policy to look. There are a few things that we were talking about within the policy committee. We have several policy committee members here, so if I'm forgetting anything, somebody yell. But some of the points we were looking at is the timeline. Currently, we had discussions within the policy committee that the timing is a bit strange. We know the reasoning for it. You want to have an evaluation done before the end of the fiscal year. However, when you're talking about doing an evaluation the beginning of May, you run into issues where you have new board members who may not have the full ability to do an evaluation. So just things that we need to discuss and kind of figure out how Hampstead wants to handle it going forward. You will also see in the packet I want to make sure I'm getting on my CBIR. That's a procedure and not a policy. It's kind of more for your reference because the board doesn't vote on procedure, but it shows what has been used up to now as an evaluation. So it's kind of, again, Mr. Chair, I don't know if we would want to look at this as a work session later on, but that's kind of an overview. That's basically the overview of the policies that we're looking at tonight. We definitely want discussion, but this is what the policy committee suggests is kind of, maybe we take this in three, the repeals, the two that we're talking about, waiving second read and recommending approving, and then that third evaluation policy to do separately.
Yeah. I like your idea of cutting into three. I think a little bit of discussion on that last one is needed. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with the first set That's so the recommendation is to waive second reading and repeal the policies 1 through 19. So be looking for a motion and a second, then discussion on that.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Kathy, I don't think you need us to read every one of the 19 of what those are?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so any discussion on that? Again, thank you to the committee for going through this and eagle eye on this. So this is really appreciated with all the policies that we do have.
We'll give Melissa and Mike all of that credit because
Yeah.
they were the ones who went through
so
all of these.
As usual, Melissa's there for the save.
Yep.
So thank you, and to you, Mr. Flynn, for the save also. All right, so if there's no discussion, all in favor of waiving second read and repeal? All right. All right, for the second one here is the recommendation for the policy committee to waive second reading and adopt the modifications for, this one I'll read off, CB, school superintendent, and CB, appointment of superintendent. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Any discussion around those? Discussion? All in favor? All right. I'd like to chat about the third one first, before there's any motions. I think that this one does warrant a working meeting for us with Mr. Thompson, because, there is a lot to evaluations, starting off a new SAU, new superintendent. I think that makes sense. I don't know about the timing of doing that, either, at the beginning of next meeting, or we do it later on in the summer. And I don't want to go too far because, with Mr. Thompson coming on, expectations should be set. So just want to get the board's feelings on timing of, if we do agree to a working session, what would that timing look like?
I would definitely agree to a working session. Just, I think it's good for all of us to understand exactly what everything is in here. So that would be a good way to do that, and I'm open to whenever it needs to happen, so.
So do we have a lot going on the 8th? I was going to say maybe we could have it before the regular meeting, say 6 o'clock, but that'll be a long night if.
That's an option.
Yeah, it's an option. I'm fine with that if that's what we need to do.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Thompson,
that
would
time?
you be good for that? Good, thank you. So let's do, I don't know if we want to take a action to move to second reading, if we're going to go ahead and think about revising it. So what are your thoughts on that? If we just don't take a motion on that right now, or?
Yeah, we can table it. Yeah, we kind of went back and forth on this, on what to recommend for the policy committee. The thought, as far as initially bringing it forward for a first read and then potentially second, was so that if we were talking about doing a working session further out, we would still have something on the books, basically. But if we're talking about the 8th, I think that seems okay.
And I know Mr. Thompson has provided us what he's used or what they've used in his current district as a reference also. So I think ahead of that meeting, I just request board members take a look at that and kind of compare, contrast, and we can have a good working session to start. If we don't finish, we can carry it forward, but at least that'd be a good way to come into that meeting being prepared.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will look to have a 1-hour working session on June 8th for that. Okay. I think that concludes policies, so thank you again for everybody on the policy committee. Really appreciate the work in getting us prepared for a new SAU. Next, I missed something there?
Just
Take a
making
vote.
sure we,
You took a vote on the other two.
Took a vote on the first
Yeah.
two,
Okay.
not on the third.
So before you leave policies, we do, the number one priority for the district really has to be these policies to maybe to be able to make sure that we can comply and comport with what we need as a self-sustaining district. One policy that's been really at the top of my list is policy DJE, which is the bidding requirements policy. Now that we have the construction project underway. It's becoming a little bit more of an issue, and I don't want to cloud any other policies up with the policies that we need to get approved. However, I would ask the board to consider perhaps waiving that policy with instruction to administration on how to handle bids and spending and that sort of thing. Right now, our contracts or items purchased for $10,000 or combined items of $20,000 will, when feasible, require at least 3 competitive bids. Anything for 1,000 or more would require multiple quotes. So it may be good to have that threshold raised. It's something that doesn't need to be done at this meeting, but I'd like for you to consider it maybe for the next meeting in order to make sure that we can get the work done that we need to get done. And if the instruction is that we're going to raise the limit, or for bidding or for multiple quotes or whatever, well, we can do that and then address the policy itself as a whole in the fall.
Okay. Is there a policy committee meeting between now and the June 8th? There is not. Okay. So if that's some.
There's not, but as Mr. Dow mentioned, you could waive it and support the, you can, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, but waive it in whatever the direction the board gives.
Exactly.
We would follow.
Okay.
Until the policy is addressed more formally by the policy committee in the fall.
Which policy is this again?
DJE.
Is that something you can send to us, and at the next meeting, we can come in more prepared for that?
Yeah, I'm not asking for this meeting. I can give you a heads up now
Yep.
with an explanation, so we'll be prepared for the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Thank you. And then it's not going to be clouded by
Yeah.
all the other policies.
Thank you so much. Okay, and that makes sense. I know that there's been discussion about the threshold right now is pretty low.
Right.
So I think, and any recommendations you or Mr. Thompson have as far as what that threshold would be in the future, I think that'd be good to know also. Good? All right. Okay, I'm going to move on to board comments and correspondence. All right, for now?
I attended a policy committee meeting. That's about all I've got right now.
Okay.
I attended the same policy committee meeting, and then, like I stated earlier, met with someone from the Selectmen and met Mr. Gillette from town, and just looking forward to working with the two of them.
I have 2 things. First, I want to just give a little shout out to the PTSA and thank them for all their work for staff appreciation. I know it was a lot of work, so I just want to thank all of them and thank you guys for everything you do, and I hope you felt appreciated. Secondly, I met with Mrs. Denola, I believe it was Friday of last week, and had a great conversation, talked about the gap and what they've all talked about here today, so I don't need to reiterate that, but I was happy to hear some of the plans going forward there. Also got the opportunity to walk through the school, and I just really need to say that it was awesome. It was the camaraderie between the teachers and staff members and the students. Like, it was just, they were all working together. It was relaxed. It was engaging. The kids were wonderful. We did ask them, what is it that you think you need? How is everything going? And they all said they needed snacks. So I think if the thing that they're worried about is eating and no other comment, I think that, that does say something. But, they were just engaging. They were happy. It was calm. It was relaxed. I said to Mrs. Denola several times, I said, this actually is like normal school. I wasn't expecting that. I was almost expecting that the kids would be behind these partitions like this, and it wasn't. They were very engaged with their teachers. Their teachers were not standing in front of them teaching. They were in the class with them. They were with them, and it was just really, really, really great to see, and I left there feeling pretty good about it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I've got nothing.
I don't have anything as well.
All right. We're going to move on to consent agenda with Mr. Flynn.
Okay, thank you. In regards to a personnel report, we have 1 resignation. Excuse me, this one is actually a little personal for me. I hired her nearly 8 years ago. She was one of my first hires at Timberlane, and when I came here, I stole her because she's phenomenal. So she's going to be on to bigger and better things, but she has had an impact on me personally. She's a great, great, great human being, and we will miss her. So we have a resignation of Nicole Fraley at the Hampstead Middle School.
So it'll be,
Motion to accept with regret.
Second.
second for Mr. Giard. Discussion, just thank you, I know personally for my family member who has met with her and been with her, really loves her. So just very much appreciate everything she's done for the students. All right, we'll be looking to accept, all approve with regrets. Thank you. All right. Is there anything?
I believe that's it for personnel.
Okay. Anything from,
And
Report out?
there is nothing on the report for now.
okay. And then lastly, review approval of finance documents.
That is Mr. Dowd.
So I do have one request this evening which can be part of the consent agenda as well. Just looking to move $50,000 in the special education budget from tuitions to outside services. Ms. Flynn is here this evening to answer any questions on that, but I think it just reflects the state of our schools this year, that we have a greater need in outside services than we do in tuition. It's all within the special education budget, but I did want to put that out there on the board's consent agenda and address or answer any questions you may have. It's within the same function code. It's not really a huge deal.
So is that, you're looking for a motion for that, Jeff?
Nope. I'm fine with the consent. If it's just something comes out on the consent agenda, I'm fine with that. Again, Kathy, I emailed you the account codes.
You emailed me that, you said?
Yep. No, not today, just now. So you'll have when you look.
Okay, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's that. And as soon as you're done with the consent agenda, I do have a quick update for you on the building project.
Yeah, let's do that under other business then.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to other business.
All right. Mike, did we have a picture?
Can you move your microphone a little closer again?
Sure.
It's just a little hard to hear.
Sure can. You do have in your packages a rendering of all of the sides of the HCS proposed, project. You can see that's facing from the car loop at the top there that Mike's looking at. Brick. The blue is it doesn't translate well onto paper, as you know, sometimes. It's not translating very well on the screen. You can see below that the lower picture is a picture from the back of the 60s wing and from the courtyard area as well on the bottom, the lower picture. So really it's going to tie that wing right into the rest of the school. We're able to extend the brickwork. The blue is going to be a very nice blue, which the board would know you guys have seen. So, but that said, I wanted to share that with the public. The project itself is going along well. I do continue to have concerns because of the environment that we're in right now with labor and materials being at such a premium, being able to get this scheduled and completed. However, I'm assured continually by our contractors and project manager, which we have a very good one, that we will get the project done on time. And we did have some initial asbestos come back, I believe, in the window caulking and perhaps in some of the mastic on the floor. So as part of this project, that will be mitigated as well. So just take care of it. It wasn't anything we were aware of previously. I think that our level of testing before commencing any work on this was a lot more, it's probably than we've done in the past. So I think that's more of a scheduling issue than it is a budgetary issue. So, but I did want to share that, and that's the progress on the project. Any questions?
Yeah, it's still anticipated to be in there pretty much the day after school's out. Is
Yep.
that the plan?
That's the plan.
Okay. I think this one would be great when you're talking with the communication committee, Jason, that'd be great to have this part of the town-wide communication to celebrate some of the things that are happening for the school. So just keeping that in mind and working with Mr. Dowd on anything we can communicate would be great.
Sounds good?
Yep.
All right. Other business, the two things that I want to bring up. SAU separation, there's really no real news right now. There's not much left to do, really, as far as from the board's point of view of what we're doing. There will be some negotiation discussions with Timber Lane forthcoming when that will be scheduled. That'll be between our council, their council, and select board members. So there's nothing there yet, just giving the public up to date, but there really isn't much more for us to do. We've got a lot of the steps already done with closing some of the books, some of the audits. I know Mr. Dowd, I don't know if you have anything on the audits.
So the SAU audit for 2020 is closed. We have that wrapped up. I did receive that from the audit firm. And the audit for the current year, SAU, which we know is important in order to be able to undertake those negotiations with the Timberlane Board, I am scheduled with our auditors in the third week of July, which is the earliest that we've ever had anyone in. SAU is a relatively small entity, 2 million compared to our district, and Timberlane at 70 million. Relatively small. However, where we're closing out the entity, an early audit is in the works, and hopefully that'll give you all the numbers that you need to be able to, final numbers you'll need to be able to undertake and complete the negotiations to completely be extracted from the SAU with Timberlane.
Okay, thank you. All right. The second one, this is our first meeting since announcing it, but we just want to recognize we did appoint and select Dr. Cheney to be the next principal. I think the first new principal since, I'll just say since a long time ago. But wanted to say thank you, welcome you, and putting you on the spot, I probably should have reached out to you, but we would love to hear a few words from you to the public more than anything, because you're officially our new principal in just less than a month, or just about a month.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's actually the first principal hired in the 21st century at the Central School. So that's quite the honor, to be honest. One of 4 since the 1960s. So good news is when principals are hired there, they tend to stay. So I do have enormous shoes to fill. We're going to miss Mr. Collins greatly down there, but I'm really excited. We have wonderful students, an amazing staff, and a great community, and I'm really looking forward to supporting them going forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm very excited. Again, I've had people in the community stop me in the last few days and last weeks and been like, great thing. I mean, I could tell you the words, but I don't want to make you blush too much or anything, but it was very complimentary. So
thank you very much.
I've heard the same.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. We are going to go into a non-public at this time. We do expect to take action, so we will come out of non-public to make some announcements or to tell what our vote was on. But we are going to go into non-public RSA 91A3 2 for hiring. And so I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Second. Favor? All right. And lastly, thank you, Emma, very much.
Thanks, Emma. Congratulations.
All right, we have come out of non-public. For the meeting, for the non-public meeting, we did take 2 votes, which I'll read off what those votes were. We have voted on 2 positions and 2 nominations. First position of Director of Student Services. The board has approved the nomination of Tracy Griffenhagen for that position. And then we've also been provided the nomination for Director of Learning, Assessment, and Technology. And the board has approved Nicole Tomaselli for that position. I'll go into just a brief overview of both candidates. Tracy Griffenhagen for Director of Student Services has joined us. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get this right. She was an SAU 21 which is, again, just want to make sure I get these right from the two. One moment. She was from Northampton School for the last few years, with 1 year in Michigan, but coming back to New Hampshire for Director of Student Services. And then Nicole Tomaselli, Director of Learning, Assessment, and Technology, joining us from the Hollis School System. And we will begin negotiating salary. Both of those positions have been budgeted for, so those are not new positions, but existing positions which we've budgeted for. And that's what that's what the vote was on. That was the non-public was for. With that, we're going to close out the night. I'm looking for a motion to end the meeting. So moved.
Wait,
I just wanted to clarify, did you want to seal your minutes or not?
No.
Okay,
No.
very good.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So we got a motion from Jason Girard to close out the meeting. For a second.
I'll second.
Second from Aaron. Then all approve.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.